you start out working for people. I mean, some people go straight into entrepreneurial stuff, but I think it's easier to work for someone else doing it, learn from their mistakes, and then become an entrepreneur later. I think work comes first, and that's the thing that people don't know about what's called a digital nomad. But you should be metrics based when you're looking at growth people. You know, like what industries have you worked with? What results have you proven? And if the numbers are there, then it doesn't matter where they are.
And that's next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough, use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams? Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. Today I will be talking with Andrew Lee Miller, who's also known as AndrewStartups, as you can see from his t-shirt. He will be giving you some actionable and proven advice around how to bootstrap successful startups and drive them to profitability and finally an exit. So Andrew has driven growth for 3 multi-million dollar startup exits in both Dubai and Silicon Valley. And he started it off with really low budget. So that's really aligned well with what we are all about here on Bootstrapping Your Dream show, which means he's proficient with much more than just scaling marketing, but doing it at a budget. So that's what we are here to learn from. And obviously he's an excellent growth hacker. So we'll be talking about some growth hacking techniques, I guess, in this interview. So welcome, Andrew. We are so excited to have you.
Hey Manuj, how are you? Thank you for having me here.
All right, great. So let's dive in. So you are obviously a real bootstrapping master. I heard a couple of your podcast interviews, and you said that you started your first startup and you moved to Nicaragua and you started working remotely. So tell us about your journey on that first adventure of yours.
Yeah, so, as everybody does, you start out working for people. I mean, some people go straight into entrepreneurial stuff, but I think it's easier to work for someone else doing it, learn from their mistakes, and then become an entrepreneur later. But either way, in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, we always say there's no such thing as failing. You're just getting learning and data. But so for me, I was head of marketing of many companies for like the first 6 years. Not many companies, but a few different projects for the first 6 years of my career. 3 of those I was lucky to take from, pretty much being the first 10 employees to an exit. So I was a part of 3 exits, really quick, all focused on leading the growth and heading the growth teams at these companies. And I realized, okay, I think I have a knack for like you said, this early stage startup stuff. So meaning like I'm the first person to take over, decide the messaging, build and launch paid and unpaid campaigns at whatever budget constraints that we have. And, I think a lot of it is just being comfortable in that hyper growth, stressful phase. I'm just naturally work at that speed, I guess. So after the 3rd exit, yeah, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be a consultant now. I don't think I need to work with one company at a time. I have a proven track record. So I found a company that was willing to take a risk with me remotely, and they weren't going to pay a huge amount, but they wanted to see the metrics and see the performance. So I moved to Nicaragua to make the cost-life balance work for me. And that was it. That enabled me to just be able to focus on providing really good value for that client. I worked with them for 6 months from Nicaragua, crushed it. They grew 300%. They had to then hire someone in-house. So I helped them with that hiring, training, and handing off of the things I was working on. And I was like, wow, this is quite a packageable service for interim CMO solutions or interim growth lead solutions remotely for companies. So since 2016, I've pretty much been doing that and just been getting better and better at creating more and more value for companies and working with higher ticket startups, to which culminated last year. I launched a dating app for Tinder and Match Group in LA. Took 7 months. I actually moved there, was the head of the project, and ended up getting internally acquired by their parent company. So now I'm just focused on working also with corporate incubators to like inject the startup ethos
Yeah.
and help them learn how to move efficiently and skip the bureaucratic decisions and just move, iterate, take that data and move quickly. So that's pretty much where I am.
That's awesome. So it seems like you're quite passionate about travel and adventure. Is that sort of weave into your goals as you transform your life?
It depends on what day you catch me and how long the airport security frisked me at a certain
Yeah.
point. You know, like recently in Tel Aviv, I had speaking engagements last week, and I got searched for 4 hours, and I'm like, I'm never traveling again. And then now I'm like, there's beaches that are calling my name. No, I think work comes first, and that's the thing that people don't know about what's called a digital nomad. You see these pictures of people working from the beach. I don't go to the beach with my laptop. I'm not getting sand on my laptop. And I
Yeah.
actually don't go to the beach that much, even when you live that way. I'm focused on work. You know, I'm passionate about my work. But because 90% of my projects are remote, it makes sense for me to spend time out of the United States in places that are more affordable. Even no matter what price point I'm at, it's nice to settle down. I spent 3 months this year in South Africa, beautiful country. Spent 2 months in Mexico, and now I'm back in the United States for some meetings and speaking events. But so I love to travel, and I think the job avails that. But you have to have the background and proven track record to be able to back it up. So I
Yeah.
would say 10% of companies that I end up talking with are like, "We're not okay with you being remote," and I have to say, "I'm really sorry, but you should be metrics based when you're looking at growth people." You know, like what industries have you worked with? What results have you proven? And if the numbers are there, then it doesn't matter where they are.
Awesome. That's great. So, yeah, I mean, just wanted to highlight that you can follow your passion, you can do good work, and everything is possible these days as long as you're willing to put in the time and effort. So, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Um,
Yeah,
now,
you hit a nail right on the head there. Passion is really the right thing, you know. Like, so people often ask me, how am I able to work so much? I mean, I'm approaching 80 hours a week average this year,
yeah,
but work to me is not Skyping and sending emails. Work to me is if you have to put on a uniform and go and put on a smiley face. So I can work 24/7 because I'm doing what I love, and that's the
yeah.
secret.
Yeah, that's very important. So you know, a lot of young entrepreneurs in the audience, professionals in the audience, and that's one thing I always say. You know, everybody who talks to me about, okay, what should they do? What should be their next step? So I always tell them, you know, go reach out inside yourself and try to find out what you know, what is your passion, and then
Yeah,
just close your eyes and just start doing that work, because you know, even if initially you don't make money, your passion will drive you, and you'll
exactly.
enjoy the process, right?
Yeah, a
Um,
famous, I think it was Steve Jobs or some famous savant of business once said, "What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and money was no longer the focus? Like you won the lottery for $1 billion. Like really think, what would you do with your time? That's what you should be doing, whatever that is." And like I said, you can start your passion. You don't know how you're going to make money on it, but eventually the money will come if the results are there. So focus on it, even as a part-time thing, and then figure out how to make money from it later.
Very good advice. All right. So let's turn to your growth strategy. So you obviously drove 3 companies to hyper growth, and you did it at a very small budget. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do you achieve that kind of result with minimal investments?
Yeah. So going back, I've helped dozens of companies scale. 3 companies I was full-time head of marketing for. So those
Yeah,
are only
I
three
see.
exits that I really claim were caused by me. But you know, even last year I had one project that was internally acquired. Last year I had a client in Australia that I helped scale from seed to A round very quickly. I had another client in Spain last year that raised $20 million off the back of only 1 month of my customer acquisition cost work, driving down their CAC. So what I do is unique in the sense that I am strategy and implementation and execution in one person. So that right there is the mind blown moment for most entrepreneurs and startup founders. They're used to working with a strategy consultant and then having to implement themselves, or finding an agency or junior marketer or an intern that will implement the strategy. So I am the one-stop shop. I have experience, which, I've worked in multiple countries. I think I've worked on almost projects in almost a dozen countries now, and have done every kind of industry and price point, and really, like 13 years experience in early stage startups, you're going to see everything. So I wouldn't call myself a B2B marketing expert, but I've had a project that exited in B2B in the SaaS industry. So very varied background, and constantly seeking out projects that I haven't mastered yet, or so that way I can continue to build that tool chest there. So I think that's a couple of the unique things, but really growth hacking is all about just being very data driven, very aggressive, very open to testing everything, and just being really numbers based. So it's more of a science than an art form. I would say it's somewhere between traditional marketing and development. Like I'm not a developer, but I sit cross departmentally with developers often and work to build scripts that will scrape mobile numbers off of our competitor sites, or, one click post content from your site onto an existing marketplace with your target demographic. So growth hacking is sometimes even offline marketing. We figured out a way to give out flyers at scale to our target demographic somewhere, or we figured out a way to hack event marketing for this business. So it's really about being more than just a digital marketing expert. I can do PR, I do SEO myself, I can optimize an app for the App Store, but I can also go to speaking events if that's what needs to be done for the company. So that one-stop shop, and really, like I said in the beginning, understanding that stressful, fast hyper-growth phase, and how being able to provide help to founders rather than stress them out more. And I think that's comes with experience.
That's great. Awesome. So you mentioned a lot of growth hacking techniques. How is that different from traditional marketing?
So traditional marketers have budgets, so they can take their time with figuring out what's working. Traditional marketers clock out at 5 p.m. and don't start working until the next day or Monday. A growth hacker never stops working, period. Even if I'm away from the computer, random ideas are flowing, and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing somebody else's ad, and I'm writing that down, bringing that back, discussing with the team how we can do something similar for our project. And I'm just really fast paced. Tests are run simultaneously. I'm not frivolous with the spend. Like, we rarely at the early stage do we even do paid ads. We want to organically test out channels, see what's working, see what messaging is working, and then come back once we've raised more money and spend then. So I think traditional marketers lean on spend to move quickly and take their time. And a growth hacker moves quickly, fails quickly, tests quickly, iterates quickly, and just works a lot more with dev teams to develop, even growth hacking is also inside the product a lot of times, which most traditional marketers don't touch the product at all. So a growth hacker, and again, so all the entrepreneurs out there that are like, oh, it's a growth hacker, the term is kind of dying. I'm just struggling to come up with a better explanation for what I do. Before that, I called myself an aggressive online marketer, but really, so growth is a lot working with the product also. So I'm looking through the product life cycle, trying to identify where is that aha moment where users are super happy, and inject more opportunities for them to share, promote, invite, and create more virality there. So that's also growth stuff as well.
That's great. Awesome. So let's say, a new entrepreneur, early stage startup comes to you and says, hey, Andrew, we want you to help us out in growing. So what are your, first steps that you take to get the process going?
Well, the first thing is I identify if I have the right value for what they need. So I would say 100 companies hit me up per year that I can't work with. One, because, I'm most useful when they do raise a budget now. And then, so I've kind of moved my career to focusing on where as many of my talents will be necessary. And I'm a very talented user acquisition expert as well. So I'm trying nowadays as a full-time consultant to only work with companies that have closed at least $500,000. That enables me to run paid ads, do any optimizations on the product that needs to be done, optimize it for search, do PR, all of the above. But So the first thing is figure out which level of my services are going to be most valuable, or if I should hand them to someone else in my network. Like, for instance, if they're not perfectly aligned with my background, but if they aren't at a funding stage yet and they're just bootstrapping, or they got friends and family, or they've raised like $100,000, I have an online course that I recommend to them. And so I will walk them through why the course is valuable for them, what they will learn from it. I basically put in all the strategies that I implement myself, exactly which tools to use to do your own SEO, and how to do an influencer marketing campaign, and how much to pay, et cetera. About 20 different topics in there. Or I'll offer them just hourly consulting. If they're at the idea stage, if you're a founder that's at the idea stage right now, obviously you're not going to pay $10,000 to a marketing consultant when you don't have a product yet. So I do hourly consulting, which is not a money maker really for me. I think I've done about 20 calls this year. So it's not even 1 month of one real client, but it's really valuable just to help guide people in the right direction, so then that they can go and finish the product and then go take the course at the next level, and then use the course to drive the traction to hire me. So let's assume you're talking about the highest level founder, just raised some money. They decide to work with AndrewStartups. What's the next thing to do? I always dive into the product first. So research, product research, market research, competitive research, keyword research, all that helps me figure out what is going on in these people's world and this project's world. And then I develop a strategy next. So strategy development consists of 3 things. What I know will work based off 13 years experience. For instance, Google search always works almost for any industry. So put that into the plan. 2 is the things that I have found in my research that are industry specific. So, if it's a travel app, these are the travel advertising platforms we should try, or these are the travel Facebook groups that we need to infiltrate, in a nice word. And then the third thing that goes into the strategy is what the founders have already tested lightly on their own. So let's say Facebook ads or Pinterest, they know the data was good enough to test at scale. And so I'll put those 3 things together in a strategy and start executing based on what we can get done as quickly as possible. And then I just rush to the execution, which is really different than most agencies. They want to string you along for 30 days before they even have to start working.
Cool. That's great. That's a very comprehensive way to go about it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously you've worked with many startups, and what are some of the typical mistakes that you see founders make while trying to grow their companies?
Oh, wow. Do you have all day? No, I'm kidding. I think as far as marketing goes, the number one problem is not marketing soon enough. Founders are usually product focused, which is great. And you think like the product is obviously the most important thing when at an early stage startup. No matter how talented your marketer is, if the product isn't great, then you're going to be wasting your time marketing it. And honestly, that's another thing that happens at the beginning is I go through the product and I go, look, I know you spent 3 years developing this, but this is not ready for marketing for X, Y, and Z reasons. So product needs to be great. You need to have data that people are liking the product before you start scaling the marketing. So number one problem is going to market too soon or not soon enough. So a founder is waiting for something to be perfect. There's another saying in Silicon Valley, if you wait for it to be 100%, you'll never launch. So you need to recognize that you need to start promoting your product even before it's done. You have a landing page, you have coming soon, countdown date, whatever it is. You're putting out content, you're building thought leadership, you're marketing that project as soon as possible. And then you have that list built for the launch day when the product's ready. Or too early, and the founder was working in silo, didn't consult with someone like me to look through the data. It was like, we're good, it's fine, it's ready. Let's go market it. And then they go too soon and they brand damage and people hate it, and it's a hole they have to dig out of. So those are the most common thing. At a higher level, the biggest problem I see with founders is leaning towards saying no versus saying yes. So successful founders are finding reasons to do things. Unsuccessful founders are always like, we shouldn't do that. We can't do that. That's dangerous. That's not important. That won't work for us. You know what I mean? Like so many times founders have been like, you don't understand our industry, Andrew. XYZ marketing thing won't work. And I'm like, but you don't know if that could be your hyper growth channel until you test it. And I'm telling you that I've seen it work magically for other companies. So I feel bad for those people who maybe it's how they were raised or what, but when it comes to startups and marketing, there is no such thing as a stupid idea until you test it. Obviously, a stupid idea is like, well, we're going to punch people in the face when they walk by and hand them a flyer. There's a high level, there's a crazy ridiculous brand damaging things, but
Yeah.
those are some of the key things. Like if I see a founder consistently saying no to everything, then I sometimes have fired clients before, because I'm like, you're paying me $10,000 a month and I'm giving you all these suggestions and recommendations and you're not implementing them. I don't want you to waste your money anymore. So I've left
Yeah.
a couple times, 2 times in the last 3 years, I think. But and then the last thing is at a higher level, founders that think they know everything.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you're listening to this and you're paying a consultant or your employees, listen to them. Be open
Yeah.
to the potential that people that work for you might be smarter than you, know, like especially at certain things, right? If you're
Yeah.
hiring me and I have 13 years experience and you're arguing with me on every single thing, you know, like whether you've been a marketer yourself or not, you're doing yourself a disservice, because I'm just trying to create value for you. So it's
Yeah.
not, so many times founders have been like, no, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I'm like, well, you're paying a consultant, so you should lean on me as much as
Yeah.
possible. So don't be that guy, you know, like the most successful founders hire people purposely that are smarter than themselves at each part of the
Yeah.
business, so that they have the faith and trust that they're working on. So don't micromanage and don't like overlord people too much.
Completely agree. You know what's interesting is, because I do similar work with startups on the technical side, and I
Mhm.
completely agree with exactly what you just said. You know, a lot of founders, they get too bought in. They drink their own Kool-Aid too much, and they wait too long to make things perfect, and they don't really focus on the customer. And the last point that you gave was like I have so many examples of people hiring me and then not listening to me based on the recommendation I was giving them. I ended up losing a lot of money in the process. And at the
Yeah,
end of the day, it's all about just gaining control of the situation. I think they just want to be in control all the time rather than be open and trusting.
right.
So yeah, I mean, the recommendation is like, do seek out help, but if you do find a good person, please do listen to them and trust
Absolutely.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, and set the goals at the very beginning. Nowadays, I'm very transparent that, look, I don't want to work with you unless you're going to be open to doing things my way. And I'm not trying to take over as CEO, your chief everything officer, but like for this project to be most successful with growth and marketing, I am the lead. Obviously, final decisions are going to be made by you. But like if I tell you something that's worked for 10 projects like you, let's not fight on it. Let's go test it with a little bit of resources, see if it works. If not, I'll step back and I'll be like, I'm glad we tested that. But majority of the time, if I'm suggesting something, it's worth testing. And that's the thing
Awesome.
that I make sure is understood beforehand.
That's great. All right, great. So moving forward, I've heard in the startup circles that if I have $5 in the company, I'll spend at least $4 on marketing. So what do you think about this perfect ratio of how much should you be investing in marketing versus other activities of your company, mainly product development?
That's a good point. I think everything should be data driven. So
Mhm.
that's my answer to almost every question. But being data driven with where you allocate the budget means that if your product is failing and you're seeing a bad funnel and you're seeing friction and no conversions, then you
Mhm.
spend the money to optimize the product. If you're seeing the product working great and it's just the business will only grow at the top of the funnel, that's when you spend on marketing, right? So
Mhm.
basically you let the data tell you what to focus on, and that's what I really try to get hammer home with a lot of my talks that I give to founders.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like mafia movie days when they're gut driven people like kill that guy or make that move or that decision. With
Yeah.
startups, and I think we have a culture that's really focused on being macho and gut driven and like, you know what, you're a good guy, you're hired. No, in startups you don't do that. We're all about being data driven. Like you have a hunch, and that hunch
Mhm.
drives you to testing something. So for instance, I have a hunch that the product is a problem. Then I'm going to test an iteration here in the funnel. This is where the data is showing me. Then the test is showing me that there's a mistake right here in the funnel, but that test didn't provide the solution. That means I'm
Yeah.
going to hire a new product consultant, or I am going to spend time and effort with a hackathon in the company to come up with new solutions, or I am going to upgrade one tool or software to help the product run faster, or whatever it may be. So the data helps you decide the ratio of where you should spend. You should not increase your marketing until you see that conversion rate, or you see the product working well enough that you just need to scale the top of the funnel. And with paid ads, um, paid ads work faster than other organic stuff like SEO or PR or whatever. So if you need speed, then you have to spend more. If you have time to slowly scale up your marketing, you can save a lot of money by doing a lot more of the organic stuff like content marketing, influencer marketing, things that will pay off in the longer term. So that's how I break that down.
Cool. And you mentioned various type of marketing activities: content marketing, influencer marketing, email marketing. Is there any aspect that you think is critical, like you cannot do without that? For example, excuse me, a lot of people say email marketing is the key, like the money is in the list. So what do you think? Let's say if somebody doesn't have a lot of budget, what is one thing that you cannot do without?
That is a great question. It really depends on the project and the target demographic and the price point of whatever the conversion is. So if it's like a super expensive product and a difficult target demographic, then email marketing is definitely what you want to do. You just want to provide a bunch of value for free on the website, get someone's email address, and then communicate with them over time. But if it's like an e-commerce website, well, I guess you still want the email. If it's like a free content blog or something, then I guess you're right though. For email marketing, you always want to grab people's email. There's no reason, no case for not wanting that. But it really depends on what the conversion is and what the target demographic is as to what channel is like something you can't do without. But I would always say you should always optimize your website for search. You should always optimize your app for the App Store search. So that's But for me, I always start with the foundation, and the foundation is like your search stuff, your email marketing stuff, your conversion rate optimization on the website, your messaging. You always have to tighten up your foundation first before you start driving traffic to a site. So that means that I want to see the bounce rate on a website below 50%. I want to see 10 to 15% of people giving us their email address one way or the other. I want to see conversions coming in, and I want to know for exactly what messaging is working, and then that we're getting organic traffic, and then I'm going to go towards driving traffic through different channels. But as far as channels go, the first thing I always lean on is Google search. The highest intent search in general, the highest intent traffic is going to be search after direct traffic, right? If someone types manuj.com, they're going to be interested in what you're doing. And but if they go to Google and they're searching interim CTO solutions and they find you, that means that they are probably going to be able to convert. So that's like the first place to start, really. But that's really just a quick tightening of the infrastructure, almost marketing infrastructure in the beginning. So that's where you start. But as far as channels go, yeah, search is king. So paid ads, if I had $100, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Google search, because for every click, you might be able to get a conversion like at 100% if it's tight enough.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that, Google search is very important, which I completely agree with. But, there is a school of thought that relying on Google alone may be dangerous, because in the past they have changed their algorithm significantly, and overnight a lot of people lost their traffic. So how do you make sure that, we don't rely on Google too much, and don't build a strategy just rely on Google search?
Yeah. So there's no way around relying on Google. They got you one way or the other with your Gmail or your, I'm kidding. But as far as advertising goes, like, I don't think they changed the algorithm as much as people talk. Like, there hasn't been a drastic thing really to happen even this year. And you can, like, they normally put out a blog post about what they're about to change. Obviously, they're not telling you exactly what, but Google search is still the king. But unfortunately, most clients want me to run on Facebook. I spent $10 million on Facebook in the last 5 years or something, I think. Google is not even half that. Most people are running to Facebook because, just the interest targeting, you can really get in people's face. The time in app is crazy per user every day. I mean, it's unheard of. And that's why 84 cents out of every dollar spent on digital marketing now is going to Facebook. That's a real stat I just saw in an advertising newspaper or magazine. So Facebook is really the king, unfortunately. But Google, I say unfortunately because search is so much higher intent. Facebook is still like bombarding people while they're looking at cat photos and their family. So they're not high intent. But basically the short answer is you diversify, right? So in the beginning, I have a small spend per channel, but I'm testing 3 to 5 channels. and then I'm seeing what's working, and then I'm scaling those up. But the reason I brought up Google search is because it always works. I mean, it's just about how expensive it is, right? So
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
someone's searching for restaurants in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you have an ad and you're a restaurant, I mean, you're going to convert people faster than even your Facebook page or your website coming up,
Yeah.
because they're right. It's right in their face. So Google search ads get about 30% of the click through. So even if your business is brand new, you can instantly start getting 30% of the traffic for any search term you want, depending on if you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, cool. All right. So you also mentioned influencer marketing, social media. So, I've not been very active on social media, I'll be honest, but this year, I said, okay, uh, if I need to grow, I need to, dive in, right? And then I started looking at, okay, should I go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? So, since I'm sort of more B2B, I generally settled on LinkedIn. What do you think, what are the most prominent sort of platforms, and are the trends changing over time in terms of what platform should we target?
Yeah, it's really the same answer. It depends on the project and the target demographic and the price point of what you're saying. LinkedIn, yeah, you and I are consultants, probably around similar rates. We're working with $1 million companies. So LinkedIn has the highest net worth of the average user. It's $75,000. You can still target people at a business level on pretty much any platform. Like you can search on Instagram startup founder and you'll find someone who wrote startup founder in their bio. The problem is, spending a lot of time on social media in general, it's just not going to move the needle for guys like us. We're at a high level. I'm sure you'll say the same thing with companies that I work with. They come inbound. So a venture capitalist in San Francisco who knows that I drive results refers me to the startup founder that's stuck at a certain problem with their marketing. And that's where the leads come for me. So I believe strongly that the best marketers and to startup people, not even marketers, the best people in business are not active on social media. So your Gary Vaynerchuk's, your Billie Jean is marketing. They're not really doing anything for real startups. No one in Silicon Valley takes Gary Vaynerchuk seriously. He's not a real investor or any of that stuff. And I hope he doesn't hear this, but I had a meeting recently with a friend who's very high level director of marketing at Facebook and Victoria's Secret. And he had never even heard of Billie Jean is marketing, but that guy spends millions of dollars on ads. So, yeah, as far as your social media goes, it's ground cover. You should post every day. You shouldn't really focus too much on the on-page stuff beyond that. You can, even me, I have $1,000 product with my course. I'm pretty active on social media. It's almost never even driven customers for the course, because the majority of people on every channel are just clicking and liking and passing on. They're not really engaging as much as you think. And I'm putting out pretty darn good content. I had a post go viral on Reddit the other day of my top 10 Facebook hacks. So Reddit has subreddits. So those communities are super tight. So the entrepreneur subreddit, you should definitely check that out. I think that's incredible, but they're hardly going to ever spend money with you, but they'll engage with your content and help you build your brand quite a bit. LinkedIn is obviously the most valuable thing for us because we can target people by what they're working on. But again, I almost never get legitimate things coming through social media. So if you're a startup listening to this and you have a $100 product, or you're an e-commerce store with many products and the net is very wide, then you should test every social media channel. If you are a product focused on women from 30 to 50, you should definitely be on Pinterest. If you are focused on teen users, you need to look at Snapchat. If you're users over 30, then you go to Facebook. So there's different channels that we think, or that you can hypothetically expect to work better for you. But the bottom line is you should post on everything evenly in the beginning and then get that data to see what works the best for you.
That's great. All right. So thanks for those insights. Now, obviously, marketing, doing work in a data-driven manner, and trying out all these different things, they come with a bag of failures. You think something is going to work and it doesn't work out the way that you expected. So how do you deal with those failures, over and over again? And how do you keep going in face of this kind of adversity?
That's the secret. You just keep going, man. Like, first of all, it's expecting that failures can happen in the beginning, being ready for it. I always say, expect the worst, hope for the best. Man, I hope this test works out, but if it doesn't, then I know what it doesn't work and I'm getting closer. So every time you fail, you're getting closer. Here's success. here's where you are now. You got to fail, 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 fail. You're getting closer to it every time. So I think that living in San Francisco and Silicon Valley completely changed my mindset about that, you know, whereas most people, a failure, oh, I spent so much time on that campaign, I'm going to give up altogether. That sucks. Whereas San Francisco, you're like, oh my God, we failed. That means we're probably only 1 or 2 more failures away from literally making billions or millions or whatever it is. So I think that it's a mindset, and it's just how you process negative information. You know, if something bad happens, there's really no such thing as something bad, because there's just information. It might come around to be a good thing later on, because this bad thing happened, we pivoted, and we ended up becoming a better product. Instagram, for instance, was originally a bourbon rating app where you would rate your drinks. And like, they couldn't take off. They couldn't figure out what was working. And then they figured out that people only liked the photo part of it. So what started out as a bad, depressing thing, they just took everything else out and made it a photo app, and obviously know how that went. So I think that mentality is the first thing. Second thing is moving quickly, right? We got the data, we failed. Failing quickly is a phrase in Silicon Valley, because you want to fail with as least amount of resources as possible, right? So you don't give up on something until you know that it's not going any further, but you don't keep it going once you know it's not working out. So failing as quickly as possible, getting over it, not letting your ego come into it. It's just data. Those are the main things, I think, to get over failure.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I think one of the key things that I think your message contained was always take a lesson from the failure, because a lot of people, they just let the failures go by, and even if they are going on in spite of failures, they do not look back and say, okay, why did it fail, and get some lessons out of that for future use.
Yeah, if you don't do that, then you're bound to fail again. So
yeah,
you gotta get, there's a lot of people don't know that there's value in your failures. You're learning. There's a famous quote from the guy that started PayPal, Max Levchin. He was like, my first startup failed miserably. Second startup did pretty well, but eventually failed. Third startup was a terrible idea. It just failed. Fourth startup did pretty good, but again, failed at the end. And the fifth startup was PayPal. So you like just keep getting closer and closer to winning. You never give up. And like, that is really the number one thing that separates the people that make tens of millions of dollars from their startup from everyone else. Like even me, a lot of people ask, Andrew, you've been working with successful startup founders for so long. Why don't you have your own startup? Why don't you found something? And the answer is, I don't have the ability to work on something for 7 to 10 years. I know that. I like to work with startup founders from 3 to 12 months. I'm not going to be able to work on a project for longer than that. And the most successful startup founders are literally heads down on the same project for 7 to 10 years, as long as it takes. So if you're listening to this and you're a new startup founder and you're hoping to get an exit in 2 years, you're working on the wrong project. You need to be ready to work on something for 5 to 10 years. And if you are, and you're unwilling to give up on that mission, no matter how many times you have to go back for fundraising, you have to move in with your parents to make the money work, whatever it is, you will get there eventually.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. All right. It's been a great, insightful interview. Thanks a lot for sharing all that information. Is there anything that you may want to add to that, which I haven't asked? And also, please do let us know how people can reach out and what kind of services you can provide to startup founders.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm going to go above and beyond, and I would love to give any listener a 25% discount, which is a unique discount exclusive to Manuj and his Tetra Noodle following and podcast, on the growth hacking course that I have. So like I said, nowadays, after so many successes, to be a full-time consultant with startups, I'm between $10,000 and $15,000 a month. That might sound crazy, but last year I had my clients raise $25 million off the back of what I do. And I'm working with companies that are raising at least 500,000. And in the first month, I can normally reduce their customer acquisition cost in half. So I provide a ton of value for corporate, fast hyper-growth companies. And I also work with corporate incubators to launch their startups inside. But that unfortunately means I can't work with all the early stage startup founders who are just at idea stage or have some money and they need to learn how to do the growth hacking internally. So last year I spent 6 months developing a course. It's 45 videos, 60-page workbook, a private entrepreneur community, set hours working with me as a mentor. And I have about 15 startups that have gone through that program already this year. They basically take the classes. They can either purchase The lower end is $1,000, and they get access to every lesson, tool recommendation, template, example from my career that they can use to then growth hack their own growth. Or at the higher end, it's $2,000, and I sit with them, audit their business, review their campaigns. They get certain hours booked with me on top of the course, and then I guide them through taking the course. And unbelievable results so far, Manuj. The companies that have gone through, 3 of the companies have already raised funding, so that they figured out how to grow organically using this course, and then that traction enables them to go and pitch to investors and show them, wow, look at, we're growing organically already, and they raise that money from there. So that's the most important thing I want to try and get out there to early stage founders, because you can get I've helped companies get interns and use the course as the salary for the intern. So you get an unpaid intern for 2 months to come and execute these growth strategies with you in their office. They're learning how to start a startup from you, and then they're also learning marketing techniques from me in the course. And then at the lower level, I also do hourly consulting. So if they just want to book an hour of my time, they can get in touch with me at AndrewStartups on Instagram, on Twitter, on AndrewStartups.com, or you can even email me at AndrewStartups.com. So we'd love to chat with any early stage startup founder that needs help with marketing. And even if you need product help, I have an unbelievable partner that does MVP design and development. And if you need CTO stuff, talk to Manuj.
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for coming on to our show and sharing all your wisdom. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you for having me here. Take care.
And that's all for now. Until next time. And if you're an existing or an aspiring tech entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to bootstrappedtechstartup.com and sign up for free. I want to make sure that more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to bootstrappedtechstartup.com, and I look forward to helping you with your tech projects. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.